see is that our communication is crisis bound, in the sense that when we communicate during a crisis, we get a high level of feedback and interaction. Okay, but on a regular day, what should we do? What should we say? We can share certain stories, and we do have a strategy for that, but what would be your advice to an organization, let's say a municipality or a public organization somehow? What should they do? And maybe also I'm passing that one to Sari also, if you have any thoughts about that. That's a broad question, maybe.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm happy to answer this one again based on what I do for a living. I teach the public sector how to talk to residents in times of non-crisis, to prepare them for times of crisis, maybe. And the way I say it is you need to tell stories and put a human face to your organisations. Otherwise, you're just this entity that exists for when these things happen. I mean, I've just linked to in the chat the Wolverhampton City Council's Facebook page, which is Wolverhampton Today. Now, multiple agencies use that. I know Wolverhampton Council post on there, the LNP post on there. I think the Wolverhampton City Centre Company, which is NPV1, also post on there. And that's about telling people what's going on at times where maybe you wouldn't think actually anything was going on. So, you know, council tell us about when there's new shops opening in the town. They talk about silly things like, you know, how things happening in the parks, and I mean, from a Red Cross point of view, you could set up, so, you know, to talk about the stories of the people that you have, or information about how to prepare for crisis, particularly when you're looking at regions, and I go back to New Zealand, you know, earthquakes. It wasn't a unique event there. The scale of it was, but the actual earthquakes, they have them all the time, and they've got information. They have, you know, in schools they have earthquake drills, like we have fire drills, and they have earthquake packs, which they always keep in their houses. And I only know this through information I've received through social media. But those are the kind of things Red Cross could be talking about. Did you know this is what this place goes through, and this is what they do? This is what happened in response to this 3 years ago. This is this person's story. This is our worker's story. And it's about humanising and just, it's just about dialogue. It's about how would you chat to someone in the pub?
Yeah, I think that, thanks a lot for sharing that. And I mean, sorry, feel free to jump in, but what we're doing, I mean, on international level is different organizations, or to exactly what you're saying, we're trying to convey a personal story about the organization. We try to tell a story about our staff members, what they do, and also show the diversity of our work, not just crisis, but also what we do on a daily basis somehow in different contexts. But, sorry, I know, do you agree with that? I mean, the content you publish, I mean, you differ, as we said, between crisis and a normal day. How do you do a normal day? What type of stories do you share? And what content do you use? If the connection works at your end.
Yeah. No. I think
Okay, well, I can't really hear.
No.
Maybe can you write, sorry, just your response to the question, and then meanwhile I'm just shooting back with my kind of second question to Steph, and maybe Val, feel free to jump in, and Adeline as well. So, okay, let's say you can host a conversation on platforms like Facebook and Twitter, where you can have people coming to you and you can interact with them. But to what extent should a public organization or an international organization be proactive? Let's say if I have a monitoring system and I see that people are talking about the Red Cross or about this municipality on blogs, on forums, on other platforms, not necessarily our Facebook page, but elsewhere, to what extent do we want to reach out to them and jump on that forum or that blog and post a comment, to do that proactive, maybe a bit aggressive outreach? Do you have an experience to share on that stuff?
Okay, I think actually that's a natural part of social networking on the social web. If people are blogging and have comments forms open, there is no reason why any organisation shouldn't respond to whatever's being said. Now, there's a great example. Now, you're going to have to excuse me because it's a few years old, so I'm going to try and wrap the back of my brains for the details. And it's not a public sector organisation, but it was a car hire company. And somebody wrote a blog post about the fact that they'd had an horrendous service with this company, to the point where they Google was actually pulling up their blog post as one of the top results when their company name was Googled for. And they reached out to the blogging community, and they actually offered this blogger and some of the commenters on the sites free test drives of the car. Now, okay, that's a marketing point of view, and that was damage limitation, but the same can apply to councils, public sector workers, any service provider. If the comments are open and it's an open forum that's being discussed, my question to you, actually back to you, is why wouldn't you want to join in with that conversation if it's going to raise awareness of your cause or your organisation?
I think Steph's quite right there. When it's almost like an open discussion. Now, our policy at the council is you know, just because someone might be saying something that you don't agree with, unless it's factually incorrect, we don't step in. I mean, that was really hard because you're going, oh no, they're saying horrible things about us, but you can't step in because you actually make it worse. And experience has shown that when people are commenting, and obviously, you know, sometimes loads of people getting, you know, the conversation will be 50, 60 posts. You kind of have to hope that it'll sort itself out, really, that, you know, you're not the enforcer here. You've created an open platform for discussion, so you can't go enforce it. And every time you disagree with something, so unless it's factually incorrect, we don't really step in. And that does mean we get comments that, you know, aren't always great about the authority. But I think that's part of being transparent and showing people that, you know, you're kind of on their side and you're not kind of keeping secrets from them or whatever. I think that's the only way to be, is to kind of let people make comments, whether they be positive or negative. And I think it's only a good thing, the fact that you can take those comments. And it creates conversation between the citizens, which is what social media, you know, apart from the crisis bit, is all about. You want people to talk to each other as well. It's not just them talking with you. You want them to talk to each other. You want them to share locally events that are going on. You know, somebody will say so-and-so is happening here, and then somebody else will say, oh, really? I didn't know. So I think it's quite good like that, but you've just got to be really kind of be patient and don't jump in straight away. I think once you start doing that, it's kind of really negative.
I think that's really interesting what you're saying, Well, and thanks for shooting back the question, Steph. I think that's a good one, which I've been thinking about for a couple of years now, and I'm sure also I can speak for Sarah when it comes to that. I mean, ICRC, or sorry, the International Red Cross, as well as WHO, are not social organizations, frankly. We're bureaucratic organizations, as many other public organizations, I'm sure if you've experienced it. And I think that if you take the ICRC in particular, we host a conversation, and our organization culture is so extremely, if you want, conservative and careful. And I'm sure you also, Lynn, knows this very, very well. I mean,
it's true. Completely.
When you've been in touch with the communicators at the ICRC, that we kind of enter the social media domain in this new environment that I tried to describe earlier when we started, carefully and small steps forward. We're hosting conversation, and increasingly, yes, we want to be perceived transparent and approachable, and people do post questions and we do reply to them. But to take the step to be proactive and reach out, even if I'm sure that they could be very useful for organization to be perceived as dynamic, but also, let's say, if there is missing information being shared, if people are saying that, making a wrong reference on a site or a forum, of course, we would like to go on there and correct it, but at the same point, that takes time and resources, and I'm not sure exactly if that will fit with, as I said, our current organization culture, because we are not social, we are bureaucratic. But interesting what you're saying, absolutely. I don't know, Sarah, I see what you're reading in the chat, and I think you seem to have a really solid solid strategy when you're interacting with people, and as you say, also you're communicating about public health that concerns everyone somehow. But I'm really curious about this proactive outreach. I don't know, anyone, do you have any more thoughts about that? Or Adeline, what do you think about that when it comes to not just ICRC but organizations?
I think it's essential to be a bit proactive, because it's to create a confidence with your beneficiaries and the public, and it's also important to build the credibility and the identity of the RCRC, for example, in the head of the victims or the local population, but the general public and the public in general, actually, because it's also an operational tool, because if you're really proactive, even when there's no crisis, when there will be one, actually, people will get used to see the RCRC really proactive. They will automatically talk about the RCRC, because they constantly, actually, if they open Facebook, they constantly see a new comment, new activities, even if it's not a crisis one. Actually, it's really just to have visibility, a continuous visibility, build the credibility, reputation, and also really in French it's un lien de confiance, une relation de confiance, confidential, pas confidential, confiance, which means confidence with, I don't know if you...
Trust.
Yeah, exactly, trust, sorry. A trust based with your public, because you're close to them, actually. So I think it's essential to be proactive, just on the long term, to be the main reference when there's a crisis, actually. I think it's essential.
Right, thank you. Well, I think we're reaching 1 o'clock now, so...
We are, or 2 in Geneva, actually.
2 o'clock in Geneva, yeah, exactly.
the time differences has been a headache in planning this little thing. But, yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you ever so much for all of you to join us, and we're really glad that you can make the whole hour, and that the technology managed to survive more or less. So I think so far this is probably the most successful hangout this week, I think, by the sound of it. But yeah, thank you ever so much. We will be putting, like I said, we've both done presentations each, so we will be putting those on the Google page. We'll send you the links as well, and there's also a screencast, so if you want to share the hangout with anyone, or if you want to go through it again, feel free to distribute whoever you want to. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That's really interesting.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, definitely, we had a good discussion, and we'll come back with you with some feedback. It would be good if you, I just posted a little note saying if you have Twitter handles, you can share them. We'll be very... All right, guys, thanks a lot. Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.